Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another jam-packed daily market update. We're going to do something rather interesting in this one. We often talk about how cryptocurrencies are fundamentally going to change our world, not just financially, but more broadly in how we do things. If we think about how we're communicating right now, it's over the internet via devices. Both of these were prior technological revolutions that we use today without even thinking about it. In fact, if you think about getting in your car in the morning, you don't really think about the revolution that was the engine that at the time would have probably been met with a degree of skepticism, but today is integral to all of our lives, certainly in the more developed countries. Crypto is on a similar trajectory, and I'm afraid that is not all good. There's so much good with it, the democratization of markets, perhaps the opportunity for self-sovereignty, so on and so forth. However, there are negatives to it. One of which that people have put forward, and actually America has written into law that they're not going to allow, are potentially CBDCs. Now, stablecoins and CBDCs, I think, are very much the same thing. Another aspect, perhaps, of it is not just CBDCs, but CBDCs with AI in conjunction with digital IDs. And many of you out there would have heard the outcries here in the UK in regards to our Prime Minister announcing a digital ID compulsory scheme to combat illegal working. Now, I think the illegal working aspect is a straw man. I believe it was Tony Blair that said a couple of weeks ago that actually a digital ID would increase tax efficiency to far more in terms of value than actually tackling illegal working. So maybe there's a few mandates to why this wants to get rolled out. And crypto, I think, does play a role in this. We do know that the Bank of England were actually requested to release papers in regards to documents that link central bank digital currencies and digital IDs. This was essentially denied due to it being an issue to release it, basically, in regards to essentially a need-to-know basis, and there's some things that the public probably shouldn't know about or worry about, if that makes sense. And really why I'm bringing all this up is where I want to start is with what Keir Starmer had to say over in Mumbai. So he's over in Mumbai at the moment. When he was over there, one thing that he said that was extremely interesting, digital ID cards could be introduced to access your own or our own money. And this is the fears in regards to this digital ID. Certainly one issued by the government is, well, what are you going to use it for? Are you going to use it to kind of induce a social credit score system? And if you look at the implementation of a digital ID on the backdrop of the fact that I think here in the UK, 12,000 people have been arrested for what they put on social media. If you look at the backdrop of that, and just to compare that to Russia, is about 400 in comparison. You know, it does feel like we're living in some sort of communism here in the UK, I have to be honest. If you look at the backdrop of them implementing these digital IDs, backdrop of what's happening right now in the UK, people have every right to be concerned. And when you get Starmer, which we're about to dive into this clip, coming out and saying things like he did over in Mumbai, it adds more fuel to the fire, as it were. So let's go ahead and play this. We'll refresh you on what the Bank of England have said around CBDCs and digital IDs. And then we're going to talk actually about a trade idea in regards to all of this. People, some of you are probably watching Zcash do very well right now. It's a kind of an anonymity coin, an anonymous coin, a privacy coin, as it were. There's going to be, and I've always suspected this, but now we're getting every reason for it, certainly here in the UK, there's going to be a push towards privacy, okay? Things like Monero, Zcash, some of the others out there. Actually, even myself may want to consider accumulating a small amount of as a kind of hedge for whatever kind of totality comes at us. And it does seem like increasingly we're hurtling towards that. So this is relevant to crypto in a number of ways. One, it's going to play a role probably in enabling all this. Okay? There's good and bad with everything in life. And two, is actually there's definitely a trade out of all of this. As people look to move away from being trapped within the system. We see a flight of billionaires and millionaires leaving the UK right now to get out of that system. I think that same principle applies to actually people looking for a kind of currency system that people can use outside of the system. This is a very interesting trade idea that we'll probably explore with you guys over the coming weeks and months, certainly if we do something with it. Let's dive into what Starmer had to say over in Mumbai that's got everybody worried.
For it. Here in India, I think it's 1 billion people have digital ID. It's been taken up on a voluntary basis in huge numbers, not least because it means that you can access your own money, make payments so much more easily than is available with others. So I think now we need to go out and make that case of the huge benefits that this will bring. There needs to be a national debate about it, and I think that the more people see the benefits that come with this, the more, as has happened in other countries, people say that will make my life easier, and therefore I want to get on with it.
That will make my life easier, and therefore I want to get on with it. And actually, statistically, people, as long as they've got a roof over their head and food, are quite content. And that's what the government is trying to be the provider of. And it is increasingly becoming... I'm not doing myself any favours in speaking about these matters, certainly given the context of what's happening right now here in the UK. But people need to know about this stuff, know about it's coming. We did also look at the Bank of England after getting requested to release documents on the links between central bank digital currencies and digital identities. An internal review signed off by the bank's Deputy Secretary, Michael Salib, concluded that disclosure would have a chilling effect on deliberations and risk destabilization speculation. Key points from the Bank of England's decision: documents include internal strategy papers and risk assessments on CBDCs linked to digital ID integration. The bank claims releasing even redacted versions would inhibit free and frank discussion and prejudice the effective conduct of public affairs. Section 63 FOIA exemptions, deliberations and effective conduct of public affairs were applied. The bank insists the public interest is already served by selected research it has chosen to publish, such as the report with MIT on enhancing the privacy of the digital pound, so on and so forth. So it's interesting they're withdrawing a lot of things. I do just want to give a bit of pushback in regards to some of what I'm seeing out there. Digital identity is the future of identity. It makes no sense that we carry paper around with us. The question must be, who is in charge of it and what is it used for, and is there privacy and anonymity with it? We don't have any of those questions answered with the UK digital ID scheme. And when Starmer comes out and says what he does just there, people go, well, hang on. No, you know? And it's interesting, Switzerland actually had a referendum on this, and it was a very close margin that they won by. I think it was like 50.9 to 40.91 or something. Very, very close. First of all, at least they gave their citizens a vote on it. Second of all, actually, it's a voluntary thing. You can use it if you want. You don't need to. And actually, the Hashgraph Association over at HBAR, they've rolled out their digital ID scheme. And with theirs, because they use blockchains, they can add anonymity, privacy, self-sovereignty, data protection, all of these things into it so that it can't be used in the way that some people fear. So not only are DLTs potentially going to play a role in all of this, maybe it's the CBDCs, maybe it's the AI agents or how they operate, whatever it may be, maybe it's the actual identities themselves run on DLTs. They can actually be used to combat a lot of the totality that potentially comes with them. To perhaps come onto the trade, one thing that we're seeing is we're seeing the likes of Zcash do very well. Why Zcash? Well, it's because it's a privacy token. In the same way you're seeing people move out of the UK, and we're picking on the UK quite heavily here, but this happens in a lot of other jurisdictions. You're seeing people go, I don't want to be in this system anymore. This is getting kind of weird, and I'm not really sure what's going on. So I want to go and look for something else. Like what we see with gold. Gold is a canary in the gold mine. Everybody's talking about $1 million Bitcoin. $10,000 gold now. Just keep going up and up and up, by the way, in terms of predictions. All our predictions were hit for gold. We had 3,500. It smashed through that, and we gave that when it was 2K. Big move for gold, by the way. I know it doesn't seem like a lot in crypto, but people are going, we want out of this. And this is where I think potentially there's a trade, and I'm not calling it a trade, but a harbor, I guess, with the likes of privacy tokens that maybe for years, a lot of people have accumulated silver and gold as a kind of hedge against the system and hyperinflation. Maybe these privacy tokens could act in a similar manner. You know, Monero had a lot of issues recently, but I think long term it does well, and I think it's due to what we're seeing in the UK and further afield. You know, we're seeing a flight out of this. We don't want the perpetual contract, for goodness sake. Do you know what? We'll just put the crypto chart on. I actually think we'll take the draws off that I've got on this. Monero could, you know, be a couple of $1,000 personally. And I think it's because of these things happening, like what we're seeing in the UK. And even myself, I'm looking at this and I'm kind of going, should I be accumulating? It's all legal to do this, by the way. As far as I'm aware, you've obviously got to pay your taxes on whatever you make. Don't try, if you live in the UK, don't try and bend the rules. Don't do that. We're telling you that straight up. Abide by the rules, otherwise you're going to face the consequences, and they will make examples out of you in regards to that. If you don't want to live by those rules, go to a country that has different rules. Simple as that. I'm not saying the rules are fair. I'm not backing any of that. I'm just saying abide by the rules. I don't want people getting in trouble for anything. But you can still buy assets that are external from the system as we know it. Certainly as the rise of CBDCs is coming, as the rise of digital IDs is coming. All of this stuff. We want to spend a little bit of time on this video because, of course, it's very relevant to crypto in regards to this new world crypto is enabling, or a part of it, a side of it, as it were. But also, that there is potentially trade ideas out of here and ways to protect yourself. Maybe gold is your Monero, or Bitcoin was created kind of for this, an alternative system. And boy, oh boy, how right has it been? And we think it's going to continue to be right. But I'm increasingly going like, for me, asset prices going up like we're expecting to on a big scale is great. For the average person, it's not great at all what's happening. It really isn't. I don't want to be doom and gloom on this Friday, because you have an obligation, and the reason we're saying all this is you literally have an obligation to yourself and your families to understand this and to do something about it. Again, this content is not popular. It's not, we get penalised for it, believe you me. But this is a message people need to hear, and this is why we're here. Let's talk a little bit about crypto. So we've shown you the Bitcoin chart. Everything is still on track. I know there's fatigue in the cryptocurrency space, but there doesn't need to be. You know, look at my portfolio, look at my stock portfolio, look at my crypto portfolio. You unlock them when you become a Patreon. They're great. You know, they're all doing well. We're not losing money. So, and we're making money. So, you know, we have altcoins 400+% up. We've got stocks nearly 400% up. In a couple of years, we're happy with that. But this is the total cryptocurrency market cap. This is probably my favorite chart. You know, miners are looking really good. I won't go too much into that. I did do a video for that on Patreon on Wednesday. The space looks good. And actually, yes, you have a government shutdown, but they are still planning on proceeding with, and it's kind of delayed, you know, maybe ETF approvals, maybe some of the legislation. But this is coming. Let's dive into what Rep Steele has to say about all of this, because it's very interesting. And then we'll finish things off with some other smaller news.
I think we still have an opportunity to get clarity across the line by the end of the year, although the focus and attention is making sure that we get the government back open. There's a lot of ongoing conversations as well about clarity and market structure on the Senate side. I'm actually continuing in conversations with some of my Senate colleagues on that topic throughout the week this week. And so I'm hopeful that as we come on the other side of the shutdown, that we have an opportunity to hit the ground running and have the Senate move forward quickly. And I think the opportunity there is to build on the success that we had in the House legislation. And if the Senate chooses to use the House text as their base text, I think what we have is an opportunity to get this bill still done, signed into law by the end of the year.
So that's great news. You know, there is a government shutdown going on, but of course, and markets have done well. People have continued their lives, believe it or not. There is still a concerted effort to get this done by the end of the year. The government shutdown perhaps hindering it a little bit. A little bit of news is, of course, we do have UK ETNs. It's our ETF equivalent in here. It's the kind of vehicles that we use. They're like ETPs. They're kind of debt-based. It's fundamentally different structurally to ETFs, but it's the same thing for all intents and purposes. We've just had these allowed here in the UK. And there are the likes of Hargreaves Lansdowne, warning UK retail on crypto despite FCA U-turns. Now, people putting too much into that, they have to do that because it's probably part of them offering crypto. I mean, Coinbase do that, by the way. They tell you that it's risky and you shouldn't put a lot of money. You have to take those quizzes. So nothing really to be seen there. At the end of the day, these guys want the fees. This is a great step in the right direction. Certainly potentially in providing a way for people to escape the system or to benefit from it in regards to the way that it works. The problem is with everything that we spoke about at the start, which is why I spoke about it, is, well, what do you need to do to actually even gain access to your own money in the future? And yes, you might have money, but I don't know. Anyway, that's it from me, guys. I don't want to be too sobering on this Friday. Have a fantastic weekend. These are conversations and topics that people need to have because it's directly going to impact your lives, whether you're in crypto or not. I think crypto, there's kind of a duality to it. There's a good side and a bad side. I think there is a side that does see increased surveillance and things like this. There is also a freedom aspect to it. And I think with all technologies, you find that, like the internet, for example, so on and so forth. And this one is no different. Ultimately, it's going to succeed for both reasons. That's really it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you all. Thanks for watching and sticking around for the length of this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.